Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 324 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is supporting others. Our quote of the day comes to us from Booker T. Washington. Those who are happiest are those who do the most for others. Don't forget to please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review so we can inspire as many people as we can to never quit. It is an honor to bring you today's episode. When it comes to spreading positivity, there is nobody better than Dominick Domasky. While many people spread and promote their own messages and their own hashtags, Dominick is constantly and so genuinely supporting others. In addition to being my publisher, I'm grateful to also call him one of my good friends. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Dom, I'd like to welcome you back to the No Quit Living podcast.
Hey, thank you, sir. Honored to be here.
I appreciate it. You are one of the few people that have made a second appearance. So I guess not only was your first episode that good, we've decided to invite you back. So first question I ask everybody is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
I try every day of my life, and let's do it.
I know you do. The name of your company, Motivation Champs. First of all, I have a personal experience. You are the publisher for our book, The Positivity Tribe, which I think and I would like to recommend to any listeners. If you have not grabbed a copy yet, make sure you grab a copy or 2 or 10 or 100. But all jokes aside, your name of your company, Motivation Champs, I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind just touching on that for a minute, because I think it says a lot about not only who you are as a person, but it also touches on what message and mission you are on with your company and the type of work that you do for your clients.
Thank you. One of the things that I'm a big believer is that we all have a story. So I didn't set out to name my company after myself or anything like that, because it's really not about me. I am a big believer that all of those stories that we each have can help somebody else. So when you say Motivation Champs, like sometimes people will be like, hey, Dominick, you're the motivation champ. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It's everybody on the pages that shares posts every day. It's the mom going to work in COVID that's a nurse. It's all those people that go out and make a difference. Those are the champs. And what we do is just try to share those stories everywhere we can, every form of media, video, and through publishing.
Yeah, and I just have to honor you, because in a day where so many people are putting out their name, their company, this is me, their hashtags about their specific things, and not that there's anything wrong with that, and I want to be very clear on that. But one of the things that I wanted to do with both No Quit Living as well as the Positivity Tribe, the company, is it's about everybody. It's about the teams I work with. It's about the people that we connect with. Obviously, you've helped share not only our message, but the positivity notes as well throughout your community. And that's something that really hit me. And candidly speaking, that's one of the reasons why when I was writing actually a different book, that when I spoke to a bunch of different publishing companies, that I connected with you, because they were all about their name and they were all about their message. And you were going to be, or I was going to be, just somebody under their company, book number 7526, where you are putting out that message and mission. Wanted to go back. Where did this whole idea come from? And I get asked a similar question, and I'm curious for you, and I don't think I've ever really asked you this, but was it growing up? Was it sports? Was it kind of a mix of everything? But what led you down this motivational, inspirational road? Because one thing you did say is you're always putting out that material all the time, and I think it's the word consistency. So where did this all begin?
Number one, it's an evolution. I think we're all on the journey in life. We don't necessarily know when we start where we're going to end or how we're going to get there, but you take this first step and it leads you in faith or whatever down towards where maybe you're supposed to be in life. But for me, my dad was a landscaper. I grew up in the landscaping business, pulling weeds and shoveling ditches. And I had always followed in his footsteps as far as wanting to own a business. And I opened a restaurant when I was like 23, 25, but I had these roots of inspiration. I think we talked one day about my dad gave me a book. It was an Og Mandino book, The World's Greatest Salesman. When I got cut from my first team in like seventh grade, dad gave me this book. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but I learned some of these at the each in Og, there's like 10 principles, and one of them was I will persist until I succeed. So I would read this over and over, and kind of it became ingrained in who I was as a person. So later on through life, as I opened a restaurant or did these other things, I started to study more of these guys like Dale Carnegie, Norman Vincent Peale, Joel Osteen, Zig Ziglar, John C. Maxwell, Abraham Lincoln, all these guys, and started implementing their teachings, so that at first I'm reading and then you start implementing. And then all of a sudden I started thinking, hey, maybe I have something to say. And mine was more about going broke or getting beat up. And I wrote my first book, found a publisher, and then when I was out speaking and things like that, people would start to ask me, hey, can you help me, or can you come here and talk? And I'd meet somebody afterwards and they'd tell me a story, and I'd be like, that's a great story. So I'd meet an elderly lady that would tell me about her son, and I'd want to meet that son and or their grandson and tell that story. And so that's where Motivation Champs was born. Like you say a lot, the we was bigger than the me. So first it was, yeah, I'm going to write a book. And then real quick, you saw, wait, those stories could impact people just as much, if not more. And how could I help them?
You know, I that we is greater than me idea and concept is obviously not something that I coined or I started in any way, shape, or form. But the thing that I always find interesting is in today's day and age where entrepreneurship and people that are starting their own businesses or companies, so many people try to do things by themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's where the creativity comes from. That's where your true passion comes from. But I've never understood, and I think for me, it goes back to my sports upbringing, but I've never understood why an idea, a company, a potential book, potential movie, certain people didn't want to go out and have other people join them, and not from the perspective of giving away money or giving away potential ownership or rights or acknowledgement, but more along the lines of that idea of we is greater than me, where if we have 4 people working on this movie, maybe instead of it taking 6 years to come to fruition, it'll be done in 1. Or instead of it getting out to 15 or 20 local theaters, maybe it gets out to 100 or 200. So I'm really glad that you touched on that. And I wanted to introduce an idea and a concept that you and I have been talking about: Connect 5 and Support 10. And for any listeners that you might have seen some of the stuff that I put out there and Dom's put out there on social media, I was talking to Dom a couple weeks ago and was telling him about something that I've been doing for the past probably month and a half, is Connect 5 and Support 10. And I initially got this idea and concept from Jesse Itzler about connecting. I believe he does 3 people every day, and he was on one of our Steve Weatherford coaching calls, and it really hit me. And from that point forward, I started connecting with 5 people every single day. And for me, a connection is not sending Dom a text saying, yo, it's an actual connection, whether it's a voicemail, a video message, an audio message, or a conversation in person or on the phone, an actual connection. Then I took it a step further, and I was telling Dom about, I've also added the Support 10. And what Support 10 is not, it's not liking or giving somebody a thumbs up on social media. It's actually supporting them. So for example, if Dom has a new book coming out, I'm going to repost it, or I'm going to say, hey, Dom, maybe you could do well by being introduced to this person, or hey, maybe this person might be able to help you. So I was telling Dom about that, and then Dom said, all right, well, it's the 1st of February. Why don't you and I do that for the entire month of February? So tell me why, or tell our listeners why you just jumped on board, and why you went ahead and challenged me to do this with you.
I think the whole idea was awesome, and I hope as a person that I feel and I want to be as a person somebody who encourages other, somebody who supports others. But we're never really as good as we think we are. So my mom used to say, "Hey, if my head got too big, she was going to pop it like that." So I wanted to make sure that I was accountable, and that's one of the things I love about you is holding people accountable. But I wanted to make sure if I'm talking the talk and walking the walk that I actually am supporting people. And so the 5, 10, 5 and 10, it's got a cool ring to it. So as soon as you brought it up, I said, I'm in. So now I'm looking at it in the morning or in downtime thinking, yes, I can do this. And the one thing I'll say, even doubling back on what we were something but talk about, is support. It doesn't always have to be financial. There's so many ways to support somebody.
So
It
true.
could be it could be volunteering somewhere. It could be helping them with their groceries. It could be, like you said, calling them a text, getting behind what they're doing, going into that local restaurant and buying lunch or whatever you can do to support in any way. Whatever. I try to do some work with missions and charities and things like that. And one of the things that I believe in so greatly is if we can get one more person involved, one more, right? It's not, you don't always need, not everybody, like not every 18-year-old, 17-year-old has the money to donate, but they might have the time. Not every elderly person has this much, but maybe they have the time. So the more people we can get involved, the more people we can support, that only makes our world a better place. So like we were talking about earlier, it makes it makes us better as businessmen, as people, our community, our nation, all by supporting others. So I'm all in.
No, and for those that don't know you or maybe didn't listen to the first podcast, Dom has been a friend since 2017, and you are one of those people that I look up to in many different ways. But what you just said, I have to repeat because it's extremely powerful. It's not just about the financial perspective. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I going to say or even hint that it's not important to support people financially. That's how charities, organizations, that's how they thrive. That's how they stay alive, especially during this pandemic. There's been a lot of help financially that have kept people, company, businesses
If you can
afloat.
do it. Right.
But to your point, it's the other perspective is time and effort, and what I call and what I've said on the show a bit is sweat equity. We all don't have the ability to donate, let's say $10,000 to a charity, but maybe that person can say, hey, you know what, I'm going to come down to the soup kitchen on Saturday, or you know what, I'm going to spend some time and help this. So I'm going to challenge the listeners today, right now, is whatever time you're listening to this, morning, evening, afternoon, think about a way where you can help somebody and you can support somebody. And if you want to join our Connect 5 support 10, you can reach out to myself or Dom. But the hashtag that we've been doing a lot, which I know you know because it's part of our book, is We Rise by Lifting Others Up. I have to say that every time I've been involved with something charitable, whether time, money, effort, sometimes all of them, you do feel good because you're doing that. But when you see the positive impact it has on other people or companies or charities, you can't help but feel better. So I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind touching on that whole we rise by lifting others up concept.
I just I'm just a believer in it as far as it isn't always about you. So many people have this secret agenda that, oh, I'm going to help this guy because later on he's going to buy this widget off of me, right? And it's so obvious and people can see it a million miles away. So I was going to say, when you were talking, I was thinking, okay, I want you in. I want to lift others, but I don't want you to post that you did it, right? I don't want to see that. I don't want them to exploit the person they're helping. I want them to genuinely help support another person without that. Well, I'm going to post a picture that I bought this guy breakfast or something like that. I just want you to do it from the inside of your soul, and you will feel better. They will feel better, and then it just continues. You know, I always say, I heard Jerome Bettis say it one time when he was ex-Steeler running back. He said he was involved in some charity, and he said, "I'm not giving a hand out. I'm giving a hand up."
Mm,
And that theory to me is just something. I'm not. I'm just helping, and then once you give that, then who knows what that person could achieve. We were not. The second line in The Great Gatsby, there's a line. It says, "Remember, we were not all afforded the same opportunity." So that is always in my mind, that maybe I had a my dad was in the army and he owned a business and helped me get into college and things like that. This is a strong man that gave these principles to me that maybe somebody else doesn't have those same, that wasn't that fortunate. And we always have to remember that none of us, we never know what somebody else was going through. And
mm.
so,
I think that is on point because we don't know what somebody's going through. Obviously, friends and coworkers and family members, you know what they're going through, but a stranger, somebody you pass on the street, somebody who cuts you off in traffic, you have no idea if they're going to see a loved one. You have no idea if somebody's on the way to the hospital in their family and they cut you off and you want to give them the finger or something like that. You never know what somebody's going through, and you might never know it. But the
mhm.
reality is it's doing the right thing, and you use the word help, and I just think it's awesome. I don't think I asked you this question on the first podcast, but if you had to define yourself in one word, what word would you pick?
Well, I would say persistent, and then I would say persistent as swear word, because I think I'm a guy that, whether it takes a month, a year, 10 years, I have projects. I posted today. We have this one screenplay we're working on. It's called Growing Up Gangster, and I just finished the 17th revision today. And I'm here. I want, some people might be embarrassed that they're on 17th revision. I changed one word the other day, and the word was, I told my wife, I said, I changed one word when this character walks into a room. It made a big difference. And she said, how could one word in a screenplay make a difference? And the word was, somebody was walking into a room. And I changed it to, he walked in the room dejected. And it was just that, he's going to walk in the room and put his head down rather than holding his head high. And that one word could make a difference. So I think with all that I do, it is persistence. You keep moving forward inch by inch, even if I have to crawl. And I have crawled many times, but then all of a sudden you're like, before you know it, if you're writing a book, sentences become chapters, chapters become your book, and now it's published, and there you have it.
I can attest to that, and you and I are working on some other projects and things together, and just in the last few weeks and months, we've gone back and forth on so many different ideas and concepts, and we even had a conversation earlier this week on just a simple concept. So, interesting question that I definitely did not ask you when you were on because I didn't have it then. But obviously, you are a quote guy, so am I. And I know you know the famous quote by Jim Rohn: "You are the average of the five people you spend the most time with." If I had the ability to grant you dinner with any five people, dead or alive, that you could level up with and spend some time with, who would those five people be?
Wow. So I love the question, and I guarantee you get the same answer from a lot of people, because there's, yes, Lincoln. Got to put Lincoln on, because I've read everything from, even whole books about his speech at the Gettysburg Address. I would love to meet with him and see all that went through his head. Um, Winston Churchill, somebody that his whole country counted out only years before they loved him. And in history sometimes tells a different story of who the man actually was. I would go with George W., the second George W. Is that right? The second George Bush. Interesting, because this is a man that I don't know how I felt about him 15 years ago, 16 years ago, whatever he was in president. And through learning and things like that, I feel completely differently about him today. And I would love to sit down with him and learn from him. Um, Dale Carnegie, as I consider him the founder of modern day inspiration and self-help, and the first one to do it. And I often think that a lot of the books that are written and things nowadays, I, as a publisher, sometimes I want my people to go back and read um, How to Win Friends and Influence People, or Lincoln, or he also has The Unknown Lincoln, which is one of my favorites. So that's four, and let's see, fifth one. Who don't I know? I almost want to keep it at four, but I won't waste four. So this is a deep thinker. Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy, the reason I say Bobby Kennedy is, here's a man that from Camelot could have lived a life of comfort, but and he did live a life of comfort, and he lived, obviously, he lived a life of prestige, but civil rights was something that he was willing to give his life for. So interesting, and I'd like to know more about him.
That's an interesting five: Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, George W. Bush, Dale Carnegie, and Bobby Kennedy. I would love to be a fly on the wall and just sit there and I think just Lincoln and George, some of those questions, and then Lincoln and Churchill would be just a fascinating conversation. So where do you want to be 20 years from now, Dom?
I love the question, and I'm big. I listen to you. I hear what you do, and a lot of people, affirmations, affirmations, affirmations. Now I'm a head down. I'm a head down. Do it. Push, push, push. And one day I'm doing some work with Netflix, and my dad said to me, "Oh, someday you could be Warner Brothers. That's like Warner Brothers." So I Googled, and just Warner Brothers, love what they're doing, that kind of thing. They've done so much. They're great. I saw the net worth of Warner Brothers. I Googled it to send to my dad because he doesn't even know what Netflix is. He has no clue. The net worth of Warner Brothers was 10 billion, and Netflix was 100 billion. And so I'm not saying from a financial point, but I hope to be the Warner Brothers, the Netflix of inspiration and motivation. Meaning, should somebody have a story to tell, I want to be able to put that story on every platform. Maybe Chris's story should be movie, maybe it should be documentary, maybe it should be book, maybe it should be speech. And I think in the world of inspiration and motivation, I want people to say, I have a story to tell, and I want Motivation Champs and Dominick Domasky to help me tell it.
That's awesome, and I would like to be with you on that journey. So fast forward 20 years, I hope we are still working together on many projects and things. So speaking of books, is there anything you've read recently, or perhaps you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
You're getting me. I'm on this. One of the things about, I read so many books, but I am on a presidential. I'm on a presidential kick too. So right now, the book that I am reading is Obama's new book. And the one thing about the book, wherever you stand politically, one way or another, it is the detail that the stories are written with. And the detail paints the story. And the way, telling me a story and telling me about the gentlemen's that you shook hands with, the wrinkles on their hand and how they reminded you of a old oak tree. And so the story's interesting, but I'll go there with book wise.
And I think you touch on something that's important too. Is it doesn't matter where you stand sometimes on a president, because you can learn so many different things about those years that he or she was a president, whether it's 4 years or eight
Right.
years. So
To me, it would be better if I didn't. Knowledge is power, and if, like, I have just finished a Truman book. I'm not even sure I could tell you right now. It's 700 pages. I'm not sure that I could tell you if Truman was a Democrat or a Republican, but it took me through World War II. It took me to Hiroshima. It took me through those decisions, that why he made those decisions. And that's why when we talked about Bush earlier, I would love to get to know the man that had the courage to make the decisions after 9/11 and walk out on Yankee Field and things like that. And so love to know more.
And I don't remember where I read it or where I heard it the first time, but I know that there are people that recommend reading many books that are not in their preferred, let's call it, genre. So, for example, if you're not a political person, you should read a book about maybe a president or maybe a war or battle. If you're not into, fiction, maybe you should grab a copy of Harry Potter or something like that, and not changing what you do all the time, but you learn and you can adapt. I did not ask you these questions back when you were on the first time because I didn't have them, but they are what we call our hot seat questions. So
All right.
only request we have is first answer that comes to mind. Last meal, you can pick absolutely anything. What do you pick?
You know me well, so you should know this, and I'm
Fried
going
chicken.
with it. I'm going fried chicken.
Favorite smell, and it can't be fried chicken.
Oh, geez. Maple.
Favorite sport.
Basketball.
Favorite team.
Absolutely the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Boo. New York Giants. Favorite movie.
Well, I'm sitting behind with a Goodfellas poster behind me, but really recently I'm going Big Fish.
Favorite author.
Og Mandino.
What's the favorite app you have and use on your phone?
You got me into MyFitnessPal, but I'm going to go with Facebook.
Background picture on your phone.
I don't even know how to do it.
Do you have an all-time favorite book?
I'm going to go The World's Greatest Salesman, Og Mandino.
And as a publisher and a book fanatic, what is your all-time favorite quote?
I must persist until I succeed by Og Mandino.
So during these challenging times, not only in 2021, but also 2020 was obviously a challenging year in many ways. Is there one or two people that you follow on social media that you'd like to recommend to our listeners that put out positive, inspirational messages?
Yeah, I think I would. One of the people that I just started following was Tammy Ebright, Unleash Your Amazing. And it's interesting how, as I go through, like last night, there's a woman by the name of Fairy Grace that I jumped on and I was following her. I don't need you to have a million followers. Sure, I love Goggins, David Goggins, and there's even the Joe Rogan, very interesting. But this Fairy Grace last night, she was talking about affirmations. And so when you asked me that question, where do I want to be? To say that out loud is not something I'm comfortable saying. But hearing her talk about affirmations and saying, yes, I'm good at this, and putting it is something I believe in, putting it out to the world, saying it. It's like just like when you get married or you get sworn in, you take this oath in front of people out loud, and that's putting it out to the world. So those are two that I've been enjoying.
Awesome. And I love that question. And to your answer and your comment, I'm the same way. And I selfishly ask that question because I'm always looking for those people that are putting it out there. And to your answer, everyone knows Goggins, everyone knows Rogan, everyone sees those type of people. And not that there's anything wrong with having multi-million followers, but for me, I'm looking for the people that are not well known. I'm looking to inspire our listeners to keep not only listening to this show, but to keep inspired to keep going in their lives, whether personal or professional. So for our listeners, Dom, that would like to follow you or find out more about you, what's the best way for them to do so on social media, but also what's the best way if they want to connect with you in general?
Okay. I'm proud that the name's Motivation Champs. If you would come my direction, I would be honored. We would love to have you. If you look any form of media, social app, if you look up Motivation Champs, we are there. You can DM us, message, however you do it on that app. But we're sharing inspiration 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And if you want to come share that you're child got an A on the test and post a picture, we'd love to have that. If you want to share that, some business tips, we'd love to do that. Or if you just want to check out what everybody else is doing and maybe they can help you smile and have a little better day, we'd love to have you on as well.
Awesome. And if anybody needs to connect with Dom or have other questions, you can always reach out to me as well. And last question, Dom, if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
I think right now we've been knocked down. We've been knocked down. We've been punched in the face. As 2020 right now, none of us expected what happened in 2020. So our legs wobbled a little bit, but we are still standing. We have survived 100% of the toughest days of our life as of right now. So I will leave you with, I believe brighter days are ahead. Stay the course, keep your head up, and I think things are going to be pretty good.
I love it. Fantastic way to end today's episode. So Dom, from a friend's perspective, wanted to just say thank you for being on the show, but also wanted to just also say thank you for your support and your continued support and you putting out that motivational message of we rise by lifting others up and inspiring people in the way you do it. So thank you for doing that. And I definitely recommend our listeners to connect with Dom and follow some of the amazing stuff that he puts out there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to episode number 324. When it comes to spreading positivity, Dominick is the best. Dominick and I spoke about our Connect 5 and Support 10 challenge, and we welcome anyone and everybody to join us. I had a lot of fun speaking with Dominick, and it's been a pleasure working with him and his incredible company, Motivation Champs. So as we end our episode today, I would like to personally challenge everybody to do one thing today for somebody else and do it with zero expectations in return. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.